How's it going, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Tower Dive. I do apologize for missing last week, but we have another amazing group of guests with me. I have Zillion, the support for Active Rush, Enjoyable Golem, ADC for Sad Boys, Tommy, top lane for Pursuit, and Vanish, coach for AOL. How's it going, guys, and welcome.
Going great.
Thank you.
Hey.
Yeah, let's just jump right into the questions. The fall of GG, question mark. Who is the second best team in Gold Plat? We've seen GG lose a lot of rough games. They've had a really rough time last week going 1-1, but in their last four going 1-3. So is this the fall of GG? Is there maybe going to have to be a team that we think is the next second best team in Gold Plat? I'm referencing that because we already know Active Rush locked in the first seed. So who's that second best team? Who's going to get that second seed and possibly get a bye for the playoffs, and why? And I'm gonna go ahead and start with Tommy.
I don't think this is the fall of GG at all. I personally still think they're the second best team. They might have had a few slip-ups in the past couple weeks, but I still think they're clearly number two. We had our game against them last week. They still seemed like a very strong team. They were very coordinated. They were able to clean it out in about a 20-minute game, just completely stomped our new roster. So personally, I don't think they're falling, quote unquote. I think they are having a bit of a hump, but they're going to come right back up and they're going to lock in second place.
Okay, so you think they can kind of recuperate and manage to hold on to that second place spot?
I definitely think so.
Right now. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move into Zillion.
All right. He has some good points, but I'm kind of on the Midwest Express hype train here. There was quite a bit of a gap between GG and the rest of the teams, but now Midwest Express has been climbing, also with the loss of EG. So I'm kind of looking at Midwest Express here for second best at the moment.
Yeah, they definitely look impressive, and they might be my pick as well, but we'll get to that when we get through all the guests. Let's go ahead and move into Vanish.
So I actually agree with Daddy Zillion. I was going to say that if GG cannot fix their pretty apparent issues that they're having those last few weeks, Midwest Express has been looking super strong, and they're going to take these guys by storm and end in second place most likely.
Yeah, they definitely look like they're kind of the team that's trending upwards while everybody else is trending down, including EG after their hot streak. So, and then finally, let's go in Enjoyable Golem.
I actually kind of disagree. I think Shuno's finally learned how to not int anymore. I really think that EG has a chance, especially with the fact that Nova Galaxy is a decent jungler for EG. And with that, with the meta moving more and more towards early ganking power, if Nova Galaxy can keep it up, I think EG can move to second place finish.
So we got the EG number one believer. I'm just kidding.
I do. I'll be nice to Shuno the one time.
Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, they did look really good, and we actually asked this similar question last week, and we had a lot of people saying EG. I mean, they were looking really good, and then they just had this really rough week. KFC really took them to town, man. Kind of gave them a kind of embarrassing loss, but I do think that they have shown at least improvement, and I still think they're up there. Maybe they just had a really bad week. I know they're missing their support, so we'll have to see if that's kind of a big enough difference. As far as my pick goes, I would actually pick MWE as well. I think with the Bladed Thesis in the jungle, I think that team is much better. And they've definitely, even when we played them, I think felt like kind of one of the hardest contested games that we've played. So I definitely believe in MWE. I think EG probably third, and then GG actually fourth, as far as recent results have gone. But maybe it's also because those EG and GG have not had their full rosters, they claim. So hopefully they can get that roster issues together, because that also affects how good a team is if they can show up with their roster consistently. So let's go ahead and move into the next question. So this question is, what role do you think has the most talent in Duel Esports? Now, this can mean mechanical skill. This can mean what they bring to their team. Where do you think, or what role is kind of dependent the most on who wins the game? What kind of role controls the game the most in Duel Esports? I want to get a role for the Gold Plat League and one for the Golden Under League as well. So what role in the Gold Plat League do you think kind of has that most talent, and vice versa for Golden Under? So let's go ahead and start with Tommy again.
So for the Golden Plat, I'm I'm gonna have to say either junglers or top laners. But I haven't been here that long. But from what we've played, what we've scrimmed, and what we've done our matches for the past like 2 or 3 weeks, top laners are very capable of picking a champion, whether it's meta or not, that they're very comfortable on. They're able to not fall behind. They're able to farm up and then be relevant in the game, or they're just creating a mess in a side wave and causing a lot of pressure and then forcing some scattered fight, and then it's just a mess and they win the game off that way. Or it's a jungler that is very like proactive in the early game. They get ahead and then they just snowball. So I'm gonna have to say either the top laner or the junglers.
I'm gonna make you commit to one as for your final answer.
Then I'm gonna have to say top laners.
Okay.
I've had a lot of matchups where I have been confident in a matchup, and then they'll either pick something that I'm not comfortable playing against because it's just not like standard, or they pick something that I think has the winning matchup, and then they're able to stay alive and then still be relevant within the game without having a incredible lead. So I'm gonna say top laners.
Okay, there we go. Got you down at that final answer. As far as Golden Under goes, what role would you pick? But you might have less information on this, especially since
I do have a little bit less information, but I still think I'm gonna say bot lane, like 80 carries. Just because from the matches I have watched on stream, the 80 carries, it's not that they are less I want to say resilient to like ganks and macro play, stuff like that, but it always seemed to be that one lane or one side was always getting ahead through the bot lane just based off of solo kills or CS leads, and then they end up getting like 8 kills, 9 kills, 10 kills, and then they just snowball the game on a hyper carry. So I'm just gonna say bot lanes.
Okay. Daddy Zillion, how about you?
Okay. I'm gonna say for Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold, I do like I'm gonna say top lane for them. I do feel like they just have the game is way more dependent on top laners in the lower league, and in Gold Plat I'm gonna say mid lane. I do think again for the same reasons I think Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold top lane is the focus. I think mid lane's a lot more focused in Gold Plat League. So really it's just whoever, for the most part, it's whoever wins lane in those respective lanes, they kind of win the game. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree that I think solo lanes in general and duo are really strong. And there's a lot of top laners in, especially in the top teams in the Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold, that seem to kind of carry their teams a lot of times or kind of decide the games. I do agree with Tommy's point about ADCs being super high impact, but I think that might also lead because like the top laner is just pulling so much attention that the AD carry is just free hitting in a lot of these fights. But good, thank you, Zillion. Let's go ahead and Vanish.
So mine's pretty similar. I was going to say, top lane as well for the Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold League. Just because, like you said, they do soak up an immense amount of pressure, and that's usually where the junglers focus. At least one side always focuses up there. And then I feel like a lot of people are not really well versed at dealing with the side lane pressure. So you have these people like Yorick and Sion that a lot of people like to play that just literally kind of carry the game, even though the score might not show it.
Okay, then for your Gold Plat.
Gold Plat, I'm actually gonna switch it up and say 80 carries for them. Not because they're not necessarily like the holy what's going on here, but because they're probably the most overall, they're probably the most consistent role in the Gold Plat League. Like throughout all the teams, most of them have really solid, consistent 80 carries.
So you think the floor for 80 carries in the Gold Plat League is higher, which is probably what's bringing up like the overall average of that role talent, is what you're saying?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, yeah, that's totally a great perspective on it, because I don't think a lot of people think that way. I think they think of like who's the shining stars, because I think you could definitely make the argument there's definitely some solo laners that are the weak points of teams for sure. Let's go ahead and move into Enjoyable Golem.
For the Gold Plat League, it has got to be the top laners. I was watching the Ja vs GG match on Sunday, and I mean the only reason that they ended up winning, I believe, was the Sylas and the Olaf matchup. And you see that all the time with Gold Plat. They know how to use that lane, to add pressure, to be the front line, and most of the time to be the engage, even in just picks, not only team fights, but but the small skirmishes that end up changing the outcome of the mid to late game, that start with that early mid game, when they're starting to roam or when they're making decisions top lane.
Okay, then for your Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold?
For the lower league, it has to be the jungler, just because especially with every low elo right now, like if you have a good jungler who knows how to control the flow of the game, it doesn't really matter what your laners are doing. Especially, when we're talking about the AD carries, when we're talking about the top laners, how they do in the Iron League, it doesn't really matter as much for picks. It's more about skill. So if your top laner is losing in that skill matchup, the jungler can come top to be able to shift that balance of power back to their favor. He can come bot lane on a bad AD carry, even if it is a hyper carry, to get to get their own teams going, because a lot of those times, the AD carries that they're picking, they might not have the best lane matchup, but it's because of that jungler coming down and making a 2v3 that that bad matchup isn't as accented to swing in the other team's favor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I really love that you guys kind of gave a bunch of different answers, because like I said again, this question was also asked last week, and we had a bunch of just solo lane answers. So it's really interesting to hear the rest of the league's opinion and seeing how many people different. I think the only thing we didn't hear was support, and I'm going to give my take why I didn't think anybody mentioned support. It's because I do think there are some really good supports in the league, but I think there are some also very, very bad ones that drag it down. I think some of the bottom teams, especially, like support might be their weakest role, maybe because they just have someone just filling it, for instance, or what have you, for reason-wise. So, like, I think like the top teams are probably the teams that have the best supports and have like those shining stars, but then you can't really consider that the most talented role when I think there's probably like 4 or 5 teams in each league that supports are just not very good. And I think that is kind of what contributes to them being at the bottom. But let's go and move on to the next question. I love all the different opinions, all the different roles you guys think have so much talent. It kind of shows you kind of how well-rounded a lot of the teams are in the league, and just kind of is up to opinion, right? So this question is going to be more specific. What team in each division do you think has the best bot lane? So I'm going to talk about bot lane specific, how we talked about best role. Some of you said AD carries was the most talented. Nobody said AD supports. But so I'm just interested to see, which team do you think has the best bot lane in each division? We're going to start with the same people. So Tommy, go ahead.
For the Golden Plat, it's obviously Active Rush, Villain in Glasses, and Daddy Zillion, right?
Yeah.
I can't, like, you can't deny they're 14-1 for a reason. Whether they get behind or not, they're always just a staple in the game. They always come out swinging hot. So that's my pick.
Okay, I mean, being on that team, I agree with you, but
no bias, by the way.
Yeah, no bias. But there is something to be said about consistently winning. So, and I think they generally do perform pretty well. But again, no bias. Zillion, your turn.
Okay.
Actually, Tommy, sorry, I apologize. We need your Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold answer too.
All one lane.
All one lane?
Kid of Fire and Omari. Yeah.
So we got the classic. This is the guy that picks all the number 1 seeds in the bracket.
They're number 1 for a reason. We're heading into week 9, and they've lost 1 game out of 8 weeks. Sorry, there's got to be a reason for it. I mean, they may not have been the MVPs every single game, but I'm telling you, there's a reason why they're in first place. So.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I just like to poke a little fun. So let's go ahead and move on to Zillion.
Relish, you're not going to like this, but I'm going to have to say the same thing, because obviously I'm not going to say anyone else is better than me in Gold Plat League, but with Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold, I'm looking at the stats, and their bot lane doesn't get that many deaths and does have an impressive KDA every week, so I got to give it to all one lane for being the best bot lane in their league, for sure.
So not to toot your own horn, but nobody's better than you.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Just want to make sure everybody that listens to this hears that, okay? Zillion is the best support in the league. That's what he's saying. And then Vanish?
So I am going to change this up. For the Gold Plat League, that does not change. Active Rush, it's kind of obvious. By far the strongest bot lane. Most consistent. I'm pretty sure Villain has like the highest KDA, one of the higher CS at 10. in the entire league, let alone the GP league itself. And he does play, as well as Zillion, play really well around their team, are able to rotate the map super quick, even sometimes during the laning phase. And I'm just impressed by that. But for the Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold League, I'm going to actually say Exile's bot lane is better than AOL's. But simply because AOL's bot lane, our bot lane is not a carry bot lane. It is we're not going to fall behind, and we use our pretty much like better team fighting ability to come out ahead. So you don't really see very many games where AOL's bot lane is like the carry squad, even though you do sometimes see Jinx pop off. But that's through the team, not himself.
Yeah, I like those answers because that's why I was actually going to be the devil's advocate and say, even though the teams are top, and definitely the bot lanes play a huge role in that, not taking any credit away, but you do got to think, are they a little bit stronger in their solo lanes? Is their jungler better than most of the other junglers in the league? So definitely try when you're answering this, which, again, you might not change your answer anyway, but just when you're answering, make sure you consider that. Maybe, like, is there a team that's a little bit underperforming in the league, but, like, their bot lane is super good, they just maybe struggle in the other lanes a little bit more than some of the top teams. So yeah, like those answers. Let's go ahead and go into Enjoyable Golem.
I mean, for the Gold Plat League, it's pretty obvious. Active Rush has been the most dominant bot lane. From the games I've seen from them, they aren't really showing too many chinks in their armor. For the Iron League, I'm gonna have to agree with Vanish. Actually, I think Exile has probably one of the best bot lanes. When it comes to AOL doesn't. It's their mid laner that honestly is carrying more of their games. He's the one in the team fights kind of being the more proactive, engage with whatever pick that he goes with. And when it came down to it, with the team that our team played into, it was Exile's bot lane that really gave us the most run for our money out of all of them. So
okay, so I mean, you do have some experience with the Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold bot lanes, obviously being an AD carry for Sad Boys, which I would give you honorable mention for my best bot lane, because that was actually my second choice. I'm actually going to go with something different than any of you guys said, though. I think EGA's bot lane is actually very, very good. I think and obviously they've been showing great improvement as of late with their new mid laner. Which I think actually was the weakness of the team. I think it was their top side of the map in general, and they fixed up at least part of that in the mid lane. And so now they have a really strong bot lane that I think generally does well, or at least pretty much is very consistent. And that was like the main way they pretty much won any of their games at the beginning of the season. And now that they have another carry in the game that is another threat, it's kind of taken some of the pressure off their bot lane, but it allows them to kind of, I think, thrive more in their games. So we'll have to see if that kind of continues to be true. But I think EGA definitely, their bot lane is up there with the best of them, and we'll have to see if my theory is correct, if they can continue to keep winning, especially against the top teams. So let's go ahead and move in to our next question before we get to the normal weekly questions that everybody always hears. So we get a lot of talk about All-Stars recently, and we're nearing the end of the season. So I want you all to give me your MVP for both Gold, Plat, and Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold. Now, this is obviously not final since we're not done with the regular season, but if you had to pick right now, if the season ended today, who would your pick be? Let's go ahead and start with Tommy again.
I'm I'm just riding the AR fucking train today. I'm gonna say Villain and Glasses from Active Rush for Gold Plat. Like mentioned earlier, highest or lowest deaths, and then highest CS at 10. And then from the Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold, I'm gonna have to go with Spike, mid laner for AOL. I saw his games. Was it last week or maybe this week? One game he played Ari, solid game, like 206 or something like that, and then Anivia the next game played against Vladimir, completely did fine, just chilled, farmed, ended up with like 4-0 something. But yeah, he was a solid player for the past week. He's on the #1 team, so it's gonna be my pick.
Okay. So Villain and Glasses, and who was your Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold rep?
Spike two. What is
Gotcha,
that?
Spike. Yeah, I know.
Spike, yeah.
AOL mid laner. Yeah, he's definitely been a kind of a key player on their team as well. Kind of their solo laners, I think, are definitely their carries on AOL. So then Zillion.
For Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold, I'm gonna give it to. Let me see if I get his name right. I think it's Kaze. Kaze in the top
Kaze.
lane.
I think it's
Kaze. Kaze. I haven't got the luxury of hearing his name pronounced, but yeah, I'm gonna give it to Kaze. And then I'm gonna give it to Rutledge. I think he's a pretty decent mid laner, and Rock. He's had some hard carry performances in some of our games, so I'm gonna give it to Rutledge for that.
He's definitely not kissing ass, ladies and gentlemen. I promise. Well, thank you very much, Zillion. I mean, I just love hearing that second week in a row. No, but
No, you know.
Who was your Iron Bros Silver Gold representative? I apologize.
Kaze.
Kaze, yeah. Kaze has had some really pop-off performances for his team. Now, EXE did go through a rough patch there, and I'm not sure if that was partially because his play was starting to fall a little bit under. I think really Iron Bros Silver Gold, there's a lot of close teams. Now, if AOL just keeps crushing it out the rest of the way, I think you have to almost give it to a player on that team. Like if they go like undefeated the rest of the way and only have that one loss from week one, it'd be really hard to kind of make the argument that they don't have the MVP on their team somewhere, unless you just think their team's that well balanced. But I mean, if EXE can start going on a run here and get up towards that top seed spot, and if it's through Kaze, I definitely could see Kaze taking that spot because he's already had those incredibly pop-off performances, especially on his Riven. I really want to see him perform well on something other than that, though, because those are definitely what stand out in my mind as by far his best champion. And you got to have a little bit of flexibility, I feel like, to be that MVP. But I like your picks. I mean, definitely mine, obviously. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to Vanish.
So I think for the MVP, like overall, at the end of the season for Gold Plat League, it would actually be, it is an AR player, but it's their jungler, Gimpy. Simply because he does show pretty much the same level of consistency that Villain has, and that's honestly who I was thinking about picking. But you also have to factor in like how Gimpy does his ganks, his champion versatility, and how well he plays his role, which obviously best jungler in the league right now, and he's super versatile. So I'm gonna have to say it's gonna go to Gimpy.
Interesting. The enter Gimpy. Okay, go ahead.
And for the Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold League, excuse me, it was kind of hard to decide because like I feel like there's a lot of strong, almost like carry-like people, but I think for a more consistent level, I would pick Unomi, but he doesn't really have enough games for me to say with confidence. So I'm gonna go with Spike, who is pretty much like a step down from him in skill.
Okay, so we got a second voter for Spike here. Interesting. Okay, so we had Gimpy, which I think he's an enter, but I mean, I guess some people in the league think he's good. And then we got Spike from AOL again. So interesting. Let's go ahead and go into enjoyable golem.
For the Gold Plat League, I'm gonna go with two different bot laners. I would say Eric the Mediocre. His Thresh game is impeccable. We just haven't seen that many games with him on the side for Third World. I really want you guys to bring him back if you can. He's an amazing support. And then the other one, a little bit more consistent, would be Clarencio, who's the AD carry, I believe, for KFC. They're just fun to watch, and they had a game last week where they went 10-0-12. So I don't know how much you want more than that for an MVP, especially since I was talking about how I believe EG to be one of the growing teams and how well that KFC did against them, and he really shined on that game.
Okay, I like how you're thinking. You're thinking more enjoyable to watch. I would have to disagree on what an MVP would be, though, because I think it would be someone that consistently plays that well, and the KFC is definitely a team. I mean, least of consistency. But I mean, that's totally up to your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, even with that, I think Clarencio's still done pretty well in the bot lane every time I've watched him. So
yeah, he's definitely not a weak bot laner. I'm not completely bashing what you're saying. I was just saying, as far as what I look at definitely consistency, because I think that's like a really, really important thing. Consistently performing at that high level, that's why I agree with like the Villain and Glasses recommendation. Obviously, it's also no bias, obviously. But just those KDA levels, those CS numbers, just the consistent performance is really hard to get rid of, or just having a crazy big value to their team, which is what I'm going to go ahead and give my perspective off of, because I know he got a lot of mentions in the previous week's episodes, not as many in this one, actually none at all, which is kind of surprising. I'm going to give Breakfast Time and just at least a shout out. I don't know if he'd be my pick, but as far as I know, we got a bunch of mentions last week, and I kind of messed up the recording, so you didn't get to hear that. But Breakfast Time definitely got a lot of shout outs last week. I mean, he definitely is like a very, very strong key member of MWE. They don't win without him. So, I mean, definitely as far as like a most valuable player on that team goes, it would definitely be him. And even in the league, he's definitely one of the stronger top laners, if not the strongest top laner. Solo mechanically wise, he brings a lot of value to his team. And then as far as as far as gold, the Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold League, sorry, I'm struggling with that today. I think Goddamn Tater Tots on Savoys has been performing very well, especially since I've seen her play in previous league. And she was I think she's definitely improved dramatically. And she's honestly, whenever they were getting Lux consistently, they were pretty much dumpstering most of their games. Now, I do want to see her kind of keep her pool have more variety in her pool and have a larger pool, because it does seem like if the Lux is banned, then her play kind of drops off pretty significantly. So definitely finding another couple solutions that she can play at that level is pretty important. But I mean, overall has played pretty well all season, maybe one or two bad games here or there, but overall pretty consistent and playing at a pretty high level, and brings a lot to what her team does for sure, and has kept them in their second seed right now. So all right guys, let's go move into the week questions, the weekly questions. What was your biggest surprise or upset, or just kind of like most interesting thing that happened in week 8 games? And tell me why. Let's go ahead and start with Tommy again.
So I have two things. The first one would be Amumu's beating GG. I don't think anybody was really thinking that would happen. No like shame or hatred or anything towards either team, but it was just unexpected. I actually didn't get to watch that game, but I was talking to my team in Discord, and they were like, "Dude, you're not gonna believe this. Amumu's beat GG. We couldn't beat GG. What's going on? Are we gonna beat Amumu?" It was just this whole mess. And then the second one would be Rez beating us, because Rez came in with an entirely new roster, except for I think one or two people, and we didn't put as much practice or effort into like scouting them, because we just looked at the standings, saw they were in last place. We were in like third to last at the time. So we really just kind of like blew it off, and then they just came out of the gates swinging, and they just their new roster, I guess they just clicked a lot more than they used to, or they're actually like just better. I don't know, but they really shocked us, so we're gonna take them more seriously in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I believe Pursuit has to start pretty much winning out to make playoffs, because I know you guys are kind of on that bubble of being mathematically eliminated soon. So we'll have to see if Pursuit can kind of clutch up, and I think if you win your way out, you still have a chance at least for 6. Maybe you're not completely holding your fate in your own hands.
I think if we win every game, we'll be tied for 6 with the Amumus, and then we'll have the head-to-head win over them. But I'll have to double check.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be close. So you guys definitely need to win out, I think, pretty much on the rest of your games. I think that Resurrected win would have really helped you guys. That was a big deal for especially your team in particular.
Yeah.
And let's go ahead and go into Zillion.
You reminded me of what the biggest upset was. So yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with the Resurrected win this week. Definitely did not expect anything from them, and then they did come away with this win that does affect standings a bit. So I'm gonna say the Resurrected game for sure.
Okay. Let's go into Vanish.
So I feel like there was one more that was a little bit more like crazy than Resurrected. Obviously, Resurrected coming out with a win is pretty crazy. But let's talk about that like absolute domination that KFC brought to the table yesterday against EG. Because literally they only dropped 3 kills that entire game, and they slaughtered what we just mentioned earlier is a pretty solid team. Nova Galaxy is a good jungler, but going 0-10, and that's KFC, one of the last place teams to dish that out. So I think that one would probably be the biggest upset.
Yeah, I definitely agree that that was a crazy game. I did not expect that from KFC, because they've kind of been underperforming, because I actually really thought they were going to be a decent team and thought they were going to contest for those top spots, and then kind of in the middle of the season or even early on in the season, they started to really underperform. And like when certain people weren't there, they just had no chance, and it was just kind of like a bottom tier team. I honestly started to expect that they might not make playoffs, but definitely that was a great performance from them. And I'm kind of glad there's some life being shown from them, because I think they have potential and to kind of spice up the standings moving forward closer to playoffs. Let's go ahead and get Enjoyable Golem's opinion.
For the Gold Plat League, it's got to be the Moo over GG. Saw the game. I mean, it was a close game, but even with that, I'm surprised that they were able to pull that off, especially in the late game. That was the longest game in Duel Esports history, wasn't it? Right?
Was it longer than the ARA game? That was
Don't
like
remind me.
56
Yeah, it was the
minutes?
longest game in Duel history.
There was 2 really long games. This
I had to
past week.
cast that game.
Oh man, yeah. So yeah, that one especially, the Resurrected one as well. I don't really think there was any odd ones in the Iron League, just because the top 5 teams are pretty dang close anyway. So you aren't surprised now when you see the games happening between EG and Exiled and Sad Boys. If AOL were to fall in a game, I think I would be the most surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't be that surprised if AOL lost to maybe one of the top 2 or 3 teams. I wouldn't at least be shocked. I would be a little bit more shocked if they lost to especially like a team like Kohler Brigade or something like that, for instance. That would definitely be like really shocking. But yeah, I mean, I think you guys picked out there was a few really big upsets that I don't think anybody expected. And if I was going to pick my kind of biggest one of the week, I think it was EG versus KFC, just because KFC kind of looked down and out. I was kind of expecting them just to kind of start trolling, to be honest, but I think they definitely, I think, still have a shot for playoffs, and I think I'm most interested on if they go on a run or not the rest of the season. But let's go into our final question. Who is your match of the week and why? Pick a game. I would like if you guys would pick different games, so maybe I'm going to go and start with the opposite order that I've been going this whole time to give the other people an advantage on getting their selection. So, Enjoyable Golem, who's your match of the week and why?
I'm looking forward to the AOL versus EXE. I think it's going to be a good match, especially since they're some of the top teams in the Iron, Bronze, Silver League. So, and then probably for the Gold Plat, it's I don't know. I want to have some fun. I want to see some more KFC. I want to see if they can do another upset, or just even have another dominant game. So, any game they're in this week, I'll be watching.
Yeah, definitely. I think KFC is a team to watch moving forward because they might really shake up on who we see in the playoffs as far as Gold Plat goes, or at least the seeding. Because there's a lot of teams that are pretty close in that, like, even from 2 to pretty much 2 to 6, I think the teams are all pretty close. So, Vanish, how about you?
So I might have to say the match of the week is going to be the Mumus versus Resurrected, just because both of them came off of an upset, as we mentioned. Both of them kind of like had a new light shown on them a little bit. So I want to see if this new like Resurrected squad can, well, basically just see what they could do in the next game, see if they can ride the coattails of their last victory and take down the Amumus, who had shut out GG.
Okay. Tommy, how about you?
So I'm surprised nobody saw this right off the bat. We have Active Rush versus GG, first place versus second place. I think a win here for GG will really help. I know it won't make a difference in the standings, but I think it's a bit of a confidence boost for them, maybe that they can take down a person that's been above them the whole split. And then for the Iron Bronze, I'm going to have to say AOL versus Exiled, just because they're only down 2 games. And again, a win here can really shake up the standings this close to the end of the season. So every win does matter. So I'm going to say that.
Okay. Yeah, the AREGG game should be a good one. I actually will not be in attendance, so it'll definitely be a little bit of a downer in that sense. I definitely was looking forward to that rematch, but I most likely won't be here all weekend, so that's kind of unfortunate, but I'm sure it'll still be a good game to watch. And I do agree that GG, I think, needs to win that because their mental has to be kind of getting frustrated. At least I would be. Going from being super consistently winning to being contesting for the number 1 and 2 spot to kind of being Like, what are they? Kind of started to question them. So it's a big game for them. And Zillion, finally, what's up? What's your opinion?
If there was one KFC game to watch, I'd say KFC versus Midwest Express. Midwest Express, again, as I said earlier, looking pretty good. If Midwest Express wins this, they can possibly vie for that second place spot. If KFC wins this, then they're still in the running, I believe. I don't know about head to head, but I believe it will keep them alive for now. So definitely watch that game. KFC versus Midwest Express.
Yeah, and that could also decide, again, that like mid seeding for the Gold Plat League, because I know those are two teams that are kind of contesting for that third place, I believe, spot or fourth place spot. And I know MWE does not have a big lead on everybody else for their third place seed. So I definitely think it's a big game to watch, and I think it should be a close game based on how those two teams have been playing as of late. As far as my game for the week, it probably has to be EXE and Sad Boys. I think that's going to be it's kind of like the number 2 and 3 teams. Or at least I know EXE might be 4th right now compared to Killer Whale Brigades, or maybe they just passed them, but I still think they're better than Killer Whale Brigades. So I think that's realistically the 2 and 3rd, the 2nd and 3rd seed currently. It was what like we kind of predict them being. So it's going to be a big matchup. It's going to kind of decide maybe who kind of can edge out the other. If EXE kind of wins out and Sad Boys gets an extra loss, they could possibly tie for that 2nd seed and maybe have to have a tiebreaker or some sort. So I think it's just a big game, and also I think the last time those teams met, it was a pretty good game to watch. It was pretty close, if I remember correctly. So that's the game I'm looking at for this week. But does anybody have anything else they'd like to add before we end the podcast?
Nope.
Not me.
All right, guys. Well, I thank my lovely guests for joining me again. And hopefully you guys get this episode. Nothing has any issues. But as always, make sure to keep an eye on the Discord if you want to be one of my lovely guests next week. And come in here and talk questions about Duel Esports and have a good old time with Relish, because I'm sure you can ask everybody that's been on it. It's a blast. So I look forward to this week of Duel Esports games. Should be a good week. Make sure to check out the Twitch and subscribe as well for that sub heap hype. But that's it for us. This is Rutledge signing out. Peace out, guys.